Hello, everyone. I probably should have made this video last week, but I've been trying to decide quite how I feel about the new Ahsoka episode. In all honesty, I enjoyed the episode. I think it's one of the best Star Wars things we've received from Disney in years. I think it's better than Mando Season 3. I think it's better than the sequel trilogy, Book of Boba Fett, and even parts of Mando Season 1 and 2. And it's for one simple reason: lightsabers. You see, when George Lucas made Star Wars, he created in it one of the most unique and coolest weapons we've ever seen on the movie screen. As old Ben said,
Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
lightsabers were cool, and beyond that, they were unique to the heroes and villains. Not everyone had one. They were used by the Jedi to keep the peace and justice, and that's an admirable cause. So, why does this simple inclusion make this episode so good for me? For years, people like me have been made fun of by Disney lovers, saying all we wanted were lightsabers and pew pews, when the people making those claims don't realize what made Star Wars Star Wars. It wasn't just the sand speeders or Darth Vader or the trench run. It was lightsabers. I defy you to find a real fan out there that did not finish wrapping Christmas presents or any other type of present, take the wrapping tube and pretend it was a lightsaber. I'm 28 years old and I still find myself fighting that urge around the holidays to relive those moments of being a kid filled with the imagination George Lucas gave us. So let's look at this episode. Obviously, let's start with the whole she was in the water for 10 hours thing. Now, it's possible I've forgotten something, but I don't think so. If she was truly in the world between worlds, then this is a dumb argument because the world between worlds is a physical realm. It's not metaphysical. It's not spiritual. It does exist in our minds. We see clearly in Rebels that Ezra is physically in the world between worlds. Not only between the fight in the final season with Palpatine, where he's not sitting there with, half his head through the wall, he's actually in there and then he jumps out. In the fourth season of Rebels, when we see the world between worlds and Ezra grabs Ahsoka to pull her out of that fight, they make it very clear through the shooting that it's a physical realm, which is why when he grabs her shoulder, the camera zooms in on that so that you know this is a physical connection. He is actually grabbing her. Now, the question shouldn't be, was her mind in there or was her body in there? The question should be, how did she get in there? The only time we've seen someone enter the world between worlds is through, let's call it a portal. So that's what the argument should be about. It should be about, well, how does she get in there if all she did was fall into the ocean? There's no portal there. This shouldn't be about she should have drowned or Ahsoka can breathe underwater now. That's neither here nor there. How does she get there is the question. Because it's a physical realm with physical people in it when they're in it. It's not their spirits, it's their actual body. What I'm not going to talk about is which Anakin that was, because this video is not long enough to go through the intricacies of the Force and the living Force versus the cosmic Force and what that means for which Anakin that is. So let's start off with the cons of this episode. Off the bat, I'm not a fan of Jace. I'm not sure why, but I feel like giving him powers just continues to dumb down the exceptionalist of the Jedi. Oh, all they needed to make more was have kids together. Well, that makes no attachments even dumber. I don't think you should be able to tap into the Force based on who your parents are. Being a Jedi used to be special, and now it feels like just anyone can do it. We see in the beginning of this season that despite not having the Force or not having a connection to the Force or a strong connection, Sabine can still become a really good lightsaber wielder. Okay, well, the problem becomes the Force gives, using very minuscule vocabulary, the Force gives Jedi magic powers and it allows them to move quicker, see things quicker, and respond quicker. So no Force wielder should ever lose a fight to a non-Force wielder. Shin should not lose a fight to Sabine. In that first episode, Sabine loses, but she shouldn't have been in contention at all. I think of it as in the book Aragon, in the Inheritance Cycle, written by Christopher Paolini. Elves are superhuman. They possess faster speed, faster reflexes, and they're stronger. And Brahm, Aragon's mentor, tells him that even if you meet the weakest of elves, they will still be more powerful than you. A great human swordsman should be able to hold off an elf for a second or two, but will always lose. And it's the same thing here. A great lightsaber user who is not connected to the Force should be able to hold off a Force user for a second or two, but should never be able to defeat them. Now, Sabine being a Mandalorian kind of changes that a little bit because the Mandalorian's entire armory was used and created in order to fight Jedi and defeat their Force abilities. So, okay, at a push, maybe they're semi-equal. I still have a problem with Shin being scared or being hesitant around Sabine. You should be able to feel that there's no force there. We see it all the time throughout the movies. I don't know why it doesn't happen here, but I continue to have a problem with the dialogue. I'm not sure what it is, but it just seems cheap. But my other issue with Ahsoka is that she's constantly crossing her arms. I remember watching the behind the scenes of Fellowship of the Ring, and Sean Astin was giving an interview where Ian McKellen had actually come up to him before they filmed the scene where Frodo wakes up in Rivendell, and he told him not to forget to grab Frodo's hands, as fans would be expecting that since it was in the book. This feels like Dave is once again dialing this up to 100 and being like, hey, Dawson, Ahsoka always crosses her arms in the Clone Wars. Don't forget to do it all the time. Animation and live action are different for a reason, Dave. You can't cross them over like that. Watching Dawson constantly cross her arms just makes her look bitchy. We get it. She crossed her arms. Let's move on. Give her other poses. I got two other gripes with this episode. Ahsoka's fighting is my number one gripe. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Maybe I need to find Dave and beat it into his head, but lightsabers are not katanas. Fighting with a lightsaber is not kendo. The blade doesn't weigh anything. Therefore, a user would not be holding the handle at the top, but in the middle, like we see in the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and in your own Clone Wars. Ahsoka uses Form 5 Discipline Sheen, but even then, we can still see her grip the saber in the middle. Now, in live action, as you can see, sitting here on the left of my screen is Ahsoka holding the saber all the way at the top. I know why this is happening because the blades they are using now, they're top heavy. So they have to grab them further up in order to swing them and not overswing. What they need to do is they need to go back to the colored sticks they used in the prequel trilogy where lightsaber combat actually looked incredible. Ewan and Hayden fought with those things to such an aggressive stint that they actually would have to replace them after each fight. My other problem is Ahsoka the White. I don't know why Dave feels the need to copy more and more stuff from other greater and better people than him, but stop copying. Make your own shit, Dave. It's annoying. And you're doing it badly, too. Now, let's move on to the pros of this episode. And of course, we're going to start with Anakin. Yes, Hayden was back and I loved it. We didn't get some BS cameo shit like we did in Kenobi. This was a full on Anakin episode. We got to see Anakin fight, twirl, and teach. Yes, I'm aware that these were basically member berries. And it's there so that we'll watch the episode and say, hey, good episode, like I'm doing right now. I'm fully aware of that. I'm aware that in the battle scene, it was foggy so that they didn't have to spend a lot of money on sets. Totally get it. And I'm okay with it. We got to see P1 clone troopers. Loved it. I'm aware that depending on how you see the scene, some of the dialogue doesn't make sense. I got that. I don't care. This worked for me. This felt like something we should have seen. I'll give you an example. The main thing Star Wars fans wanted out of the sequel trilogy was to see Han, Luke, and Leia back on screen together in one together in a scene. And we didn't get that. The other thing fans of the Clone Wars wanted to see was to see Anakin talk to Ahsoka. Now, depending on which Anakin this is, if this is her memories talking to her, trying to get her over the depression, whatever. I'm beyond that. I don't care about that. Right now I don't, at least. What I wanted to see was a scene with Anakin talking to Ahsoka, starting with Hey Snips, which is what we got at the end of the last episode, and him trying to get her to understand that nothing she did was going to stop what happened to him. Now, we didn't quite get that. The lessons he was teaching felt a little more forced. It didn't really feel like an episode of the Clone Wars. We get a couple episodes in the Clone Wars where he does some teaching, and those seem a little better than this teaching was. He seemed to care a little more in the Clone Wars than he did in this episode, but there was just something about it, seeing Hayden back in live action. It worked for me. I really liked it. I liked seeing the switch to Vader, and a powerful Vader, not the crippled Vader that he becomes. Darth Vader in the suit is crippled compared to what Nightfall Vader was. I know I'm late to the party. I know everyone else has already given their opinions of this episode, but I liked it. I gave this episode an 8 out of 10. Am I blinded by Anakin? Probably a bit, but I'm a prequel kid. Does this save the show? No, I don't. Right now, the show isn't necessarily in need of saving. I think it's sitting at like a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's a decent show. I think we've seen some stuff that we've really enjoyed. Ray Stevenson has been absolutely incredible in this show. But what I will say is that this show, these last 5 episodes, have been better than almost anything Disney has given us in Star Wars. But it still is not George Lucas Star Wars. We will have to keep watching to see if there's any shot of returning to that era. I don't think there is. I don't think we'll ever see George Lucas Star Wars again. Mostly because George Lucas isn't going to do it. You can't do George Lucas Star Wars without George Lucas. But I do think that there is a chance to get back to competent storytelling and good lightsaber fighting and stuff like that. You just need someone that's actually willing to do it and actually gives a damn. And you need fans on site. You need fans to be the ones doing this because we're going to be the ones that care. Now, should Bob Iger hire me to do it? No, I don't know jack about making a movie or a TV show. But there are fans of this story out there that do, and Bob should hire them. I don't think he will, and I don't think it'll happen, at least not in the next, 2 or 3 years. But, seeing Hayden come back and him actually doing the fighting, because lightsaber fighting so far has been really crap under Disney. So seeing him come back and be able to do the fighting like he did in the prequels and not have Disney say, "Oh, now you need to dumb this down. We're not good at this," gives me a sliver of hope. So, as Paul McCartney said, there's hope for the future. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Drop a comment. What did you think? I know a lot of people have problems with Star Wars right now. What are your issues with Star Wars? Is there anything you want me to address? Do you think I'm completely wrong about something? Do you think I'm completely right about something? Drop in the comments, like, share, subscribe, and of course, follow us on Twitter at King'sAdvisors_.